Managers of Reddit. What was the worst case of "I demand to speak to your manager" you've experienced? Story 1. At Red Lobster, someone grabbed the manager and told him his shrimp was cold, wanted a free beer, and he could get better fish by fishing. This manager was my dad and was meeting us after work and apparently looked like he had an authority figure since he had a tie on. My dad replied, "That's cocktail shrimp, you moron." Story 2. I've had unhappy customers call and ask for the owner of the company by name because they Googled it. I explained that that person is technically an owner but has nothing to do with the business and doesn't even live in the same state. Then I go on to solve their problem with what authority I have. Meanwhile, I'm the owner of the company. Never show all your cards when negotiating. Story 3. She thought that we stole her money after she stole our money and later found her money in her wallet, safe and sound. So when I worked at Starbucks, we, as you can imagine, had plenty of entitled people come in expecting the world of employees, barely paid above minimum wage, who've been awake since 3 a.m. or earlier. We had people blaming us for the fact that they were late for work and we were going to be fired. People blaming us for being late picking up their kids, and kids blaming us for being late to school. Plenty of, "But I ordered a venti, why did you give me a grande?" Or "This coffee is cold because I've left it sitting for an hour, but I want you to make me a new one for free." Or "You aren't being enthusiastic enough after 8 hours of being here, so sleep deprived, you don't know what your name is." But probably the worst and funniest was Libby. Libby was a regular who we really wish wasn't. She was overly demanding and had one of those super complicated half-calf double soy triple whip hold the cream half the sugar and do a backflip when you serve it to me types. And she could tell if you got her order wrong and would make you remake it until it was right. She also would steal from our tip jar right in front of our faces. She'd pretend to put a 5 in and then pull out 4 ones, but she'd take out 5 or 6 ones instead. And one time during the little switcheroo of hers, she accidentally dropped a $100 bill out of her wallet. The good thing about Libby was that she only came in once or twice a week, but that meant that we were the ones who had to find this $100 for her. She didn't notice it for a few hours afterward, and when she did, she called in and asked for our manager, and asked her if she'd seen it. Since she would have dropped it out in the lobby, where we very rarely went since we were so busy, we went out to check, but found nothing and told her that a customer must have taken it and that we were sorry, but there was nothing we could do. She flipped. "That's my rent money. I'm going to be kicked out of my house. Do you want me to be homeless? Do you hate me and want me to be homeless, you freaks? I hate you and you're terrible. Go screw off and die." The supervisor came out and gave me the gist of what she'd said while begging me to find this money. There were also some racist accusations since the neighborhood this S-Bucks was in was predominantly immigrants, and Libby was your standard white liberal until put under pressure. Anyway, so a week passed and still the money hadn't showed up. Libby calls us each day, multiple times a day, to find out if we've found her money. Sometimes she yells and screams, and sometimes she doesn't. Either way, the answer's always the same. We hadn't found her money. So she comes in again and pretends like she hasn't been cussing us out for a week straight, is all happy and bubbly, and jokes about losing the money and how she's just so scatterbrained sometimes. She tries to talk me into giving her free coffee since we lost her money, but I tell her that she has to pay anyway. She grumbles and opens up her wallet, pulls out her card, and out flutters a $100 bill, lands on the counter. We both look at it. She looks into her wallet and after a moment goes, "Oh, that's right. I hid that $100 in my credit card slot for safekeeping so I wouldn't lose it. You can stop looking for my money now." That was it. No apologies for the abuse throughout the week, the accusations, or anything. I know I shouldn't expect one, but damn, I think she realized that she messed up though, because she didn't show back up for a couple of weeks. Story 4. I worked the customer service desk at a grocery store. One afternoon, a guy comes storming over after getting checked out and threw a package of beef in front of me. He starts going off, yelling and cursing at me because he was supposed to get a $3.54 discount, but the register only took off $3.53. He was screaming at me that he wanted his penny back and that it wasn't even about the penny, but it was the principle of the thing. By the time he was through, he had yelled at me, my customer service manager, and our store manager on duty. As soon as I gave him that penny though, he shut right up and left. Principle of the thing, I guess. Story 5. I was a shift lead at a GameStop and was the manager on duty with the other associate in the store. We were pretty busy. Both the other employee and I were on registers, ringing through our own respective lines. Poor guy I work with gets this soccer mom haircut that I knew was going to be trouble, and she is trying to return a new game that had the seal broken on it. Against return policy, can't help you. So the lady gets really upset and demands to cancel all of her son's pre-orders. My guy obliges and is preparing to give her her refund in store credit because her son had only paid for the pre-orders with trades. You can't mix-match tenders, so my guy informed her so. And that was just it. She was instantly screaming and calling my associate a liar. He literally turns the computer screen towards her and shows her the entries in trade credit, but she isn't having it. Let me speak to your manager. The dude points to me. I wrap up with my customer and we trade registers so he can keep helping out. I ask her how I can help, to which she screams her experience at me. I reiterate what my buddy informed her, and that there isn't any way we can get her cash back. She claims, "Well, I'm gonna call your corporate office and tell them that your policy doesn't apply to me and I've never been treated like that before." To which I happily offer her the corporate number and advise her that telling a corporate customer service line that they believe they are exempt from the policy is probably not the best strategy. The woman gets red in the face and starts looking around the store, and God forbid the poor man, the old manager, walks in. He does not work there anymore, but the woman recognizes him from his time at the store. She begins accusing me of lying to her because she knows that he is the real manager and that he can help her. Nope, dude just trying to shop. She ended up just leaving in a huff. Story 6. Worked at the front desk of a hotel. Had a woman throw a goddamn tantrum because the state we were in charged a 6% room tax. She demanded that I remove the tax. I told her that we had no control over taxes. She still wouldn't accept the reality of taxes, so I printed off contract information from her state representative and told her to direct her complaints to them. She did not like that at all. She started screaming, so I got my manager. My manager basically said what I said, that we cannot legally remove a tax. So the woman grabbed a bowl of mints on the counter and threw it at my head and stormed out. We had her credit card on file and charged her for the full amount. Story 7. I had a woman call to tell me that she'd spent too little on an ice cream cone. We had a special that was like 2 scoops in a waffle cone for $5, and for some reason she only got 1 scoop and said she didn't know about the special, despite there being signs all over the shop about it. She claimed that my worker didn't offer it to her. I didn't focus on upselling at her store, so this wasn't a big deal to me. I apologized to her, but I was also like, what exactly do you want me to do about it? This happened yesterday. I'm assuming you ate the ice cream, so you can't return it. She wanted a refund anyway for the inconvenience. I asked if she had a receipt, and she said she didn't. I said no go without a receipt. She said she didn't get one at the checkout. I explained to her that in my state, we're not required by law to give a receipt for cash-purchased food service items, so if she didn't ask for one, tough luck. She kept pressing, saying she demanded to speak to my manager. I explained that I was the manager. She then asked if there was another manager she could speak to. I told her no, I was the end of the line, top of the heap. No one else was going to tell her anything different. She huffed and told me she would come by to discuss it in person. She never came in. Story 8. Lady spent an extra $20 on jeans because she wanted them for the price of an old sign. Obligatory not a manager, but maybe not the worst, but this was definitely the dumbest I ever saw. A sign was accidentally left up from earlier in the week advertising men's Levi's as buy one get one half off. So for 2 pairs, it would be roughly $90. The current sale was to get 2 pairs for $70. Had a lady pitch an absolute fit that they weren't ringing up to buy one get one half off, she was being ripped off, etc. Tried to explain to her that we had accidentally missed a sign, but that she was actually getting a better deal at the current price. She wouldn't have any of it and demanded to speak to the manager. The store leader comes out and tells her the exact same thing. but the lady will not listen and is adamant about getting them at the price on the sign. The store leader finally gives up and tells me to just go ahead and do a price override and charge her the extra money. Lady leaves smugly like she thinks she's just worked over us big time and makes some kind of comment about how I need to learn to listen to customers on the way out. Story 9. One of the heads of a radiology department was infuriated when there was a network outrage in this area and stormed up into our support area screaming for a manager, me. I listened to him rant and rave and finally decided to take a walk down there to see what I could do. Start looking around and I find a bunch of $10 network hubs splitting one PC connection to 8 PCs. I started laughing and asked who put these hubs in. He said, I did. What's so funny? Explained that he was the source of his own problem, started disconnecting the hubs, and guess what? The network came back up. I confiscated about 7 hubs and told him if he needs more connections, he has to contact engineering and have them run more lines. He flipped out and I just walked down the hall to his VP's office and explained what happened. When I was leaving the office, the VP called him. He no longer works there. Story 10. I was the manager at the time in a hospitality setting. There were 3 of us on shift. One of my staff, let's call her Steph, had blue hair and piercings. Whilst I was handling the kitchen, cleaning up, and cooking stuff, our job emphasized everyone being able to do every task. She and the other staff member, Abby, were serving the customers at our front counter when an out-of-state family comes through and places a bunch of orders. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't there to hear it, but shortly after they arrived, Abby came back and told me that a bunch of customers had come through and harassed Steph for her appearance. I headed out front and told Steph to follow me to the back, and after she broke down explaining what happened, I gave her a free paid break to just take it easy for a bit. I hopped out the front to have a chat with Abby about how to handle the situation, namely, grab me so I can take over the transaction, and how we're going to break down the rest of the Arvo if I decided to send Steph home. It's at this point Mom spots me having a discussion with her from across the food court and decides to approach us. Mom, as it turns out, was the person in this family group responsible for giving my employee crap. And oh boy, does she have views. From 5 feet away, she yells at me that what I'm doing is incredibly disrespectful to all of my customers, so loud that the 100 other patrons of the food court stop and stare from as far as 30 meters. I briefly tell her that I'm not being disrespectful to anyone and that I'm explaining to my colleague the plan for the rest of the afternoon. As a side note, it's obvious she's assumed that I'm bad-mouthing her in some way, and presumably has made this assumption because the way she's acted so far has been below the standards I'd expect from human garbage. Mom, still yelling, tells me to get the manager. Now, I tell her that I am the manager and would gladly address her questions if she has any, though I can reassure her there has been no disrespect to anyone so far, and could you please calm down and explain to me what the problem is, as my job is only to help. She calls crap and asks for my direct supervisor. I tell her the only person directly above me is the owner, and that he's out of state at a conference. She asks for his supervisor, and I tell her the only other person she could talk to above me would be the department manager for our state, who is also at a conference. At this point, she's realized she's not getting a hold of another set of ears above mine, so she launches on into a tirade. And I crap you not, word for word. I don't know how you retards do it down here, but I come from poverty-stricken suburb of national renown in the next city. I manage a store there, and up there the customer is always right and should always be respected. And that means when I pay you, I get what I want, and you do not get to say anything about me to anyone. I assured her that I hadn't said a word about her, was confused about what she was alluding to, and could she please explain what caused this entire situation in the first place, as I now have a very nice young girl crying in the back of my store, and I believe I may have to call security due to continued harassment. At this, she pales and calls her sister over, and before she can arrive, I assure her that it would be in her best interests to detail any problem she has with my store to my head office in an incident report. I then handed her a business card and told her as quietly as I could that due to their ongoing escalation of the issue, They were no longer welcome around my premises, and that I would be getting in contact with the mall security to file an incident report and have them permanently barred from shopping at City Name Shopping Center. In saying that, I can honestly say I have never seen two grown-ass women run so fast in my life. And by the looks of it, I doubt they'd ever tried to either. Security later swung past, having caught them at one of the exits, and it turned out they'd been shoplifting from a number of boutique stores using their kid's stroller, with the kid still in it. And could I please give them a statement and security camera footage for the interaction? Some people, man. Story 11. Managed a liquor store in a college town. People would always ask to speak to a manager because we wouldn't sell them alcohol without proper ID. Or they would try to show me a school ID like that would mean anything to me. Also got some social security cards, birth certificates, or other forms of irrelevant pieces of paper like a picture or photocopy of their ID. The best is when I would work up at the front registers and people would tell me to go get the manager, and I would do a 360 and say, "Hi, now screw off." My boss didn't care, he was a good friend of mine and would laugh. I didn't get crappy unless they deserved it. Story 12. This one is kind of a recurring problem. Fortunately, as a manager, I only have two people above me, the general manager and the owner. We have a woman that works for us and is the sweetest woman in the world, but she is a larger woman, older, 65, and comes from a farming and military background, so she is strong and stocky. Unfortunately, she is often mistaken for a transgender person, even though she is not. Not that we would have a problem with that either. Anyway, multiple people have refused to do business with her based on her appearance. We do have booking fees at her establishment, and anyone who sets an appointment with her is subject to the cancellation fee if they cancel without notice. We have had her come out to greet clients, and as soon as they see her, they say, "Nope," and turn around. Without getting into detail, our business has nothing to do with appearance. Then I charge them a cancellation fee. Often I get a call a few days later asking what the charge is. Myself or my subordinates say it is for canceling service without prior notice. At least 4 to 5 times a year, I get to hear some ass try to stammer to me about why he should get a refund. I always make them say it, as most of the time they try to dance around the issue. I had a last-minute thing come up. "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, but your personal life can't affect our business arrangement." She wasn't what I expected. "Oh, in what way?" "No, sir, I don't." Well, cue lots of stammering. Story 13. I worked a nice little Greek shop that sold used books, games, memorabilia, guitars, etc. And this kid was buying Attack on Titan stuff and they were talking about the next one. I never watched the show and they said rhetorically, "I wonder what the wall is made of." So I said, "The wall? It's made of people." "The wall is made of people." And they laughed since they either got the Soylent Green reference or at least thought it was a funny thing to say. Well, their mom or grandma didn't like that one bit, and after they paid and left, she came back furious and demanded to see the guy who gave away the ending of the book. The kids were saying that I was just joking, and I didn't even see the show or read the manga. I came over to see what the problem was, and she said, "If I find you spoiled the ending of that book, I will have you fired," and some nonsense. I apologized and explained I was making a joke and didn't know the first thing about the show. Was never brought up again. Those kids were super embarrassed. Story 14. I worked at a gas station. The customer came in, red-faced, and stood at the counter. I greeted him, and he started spouting off a tirade about how we cheated him on the price of gas. Since he didn't come in and pay cash, I assumed he paid credit. I explained to him that credit is a few cents more than cash. "You can't do that! There's nothing saying that anywhere." I gently explained that the LED sign has cash next to the price, as well as a sign on top of the gas pump itself breaking down the cash and credit prices. It's a large display. He adamantly refused to believe the signage was out there, so I left the counter, walked him out to his car, and pointed to the sign above the pump. "That wasn't there before! You're tricking me!" "What the f***, dude? How could I have done that? This is fraud. I'm calling the police." Sure. Go ahead, sir. I'll be inside." Police came, dutifully listed, wrote a report, and then sent him on his way. Obviously nothing came of it, but wow, he was so angry. Story 15. 21-year-old female here. 19 at the time this happened, worked at a popular quick service aka fast food chain, and was listening to one of my crew members interact with a customer in the drive-thru. The customer was asking a lot of questions about the prices of meals with or without drinks, but wasn't really listening and asking the same questions over and over. My crew member, I'll admit, definitely has a sassy attitude, but part of the reason I was listening in on them was that she was being so patient with the customer for once. At one point, my crew member accidentally said the wrong price. You know how you often jumble up the words when you're speaking off the top of your head? The customer gets quiet and then says, "You know you're messing with me, right?" and proceeds to freak out over the DT speaker, asking to speak with me. I take over on the headset and try to explain to her that my crew member accidentally said the wrong word, that her meal without the drink would indeed be cheaper, etc., etc. She wasn't having it. She cuts us off and comes to the window, still going off. She asks me, "What the hell is wrong with you?" And I have zero idea what she means. So I ask her, "What do you mean?" We're obviously idiots, so she says, "I mean, what the hell is wrong with you?" Okay, it basically went on like that for a good 5 minutes. She was just accusing us of pretty much nothing, just yelling that we were liars and the like. I'm absolutely dumbfounded. After people behind her started honking, I think eventually I just gave her the meal for free to get her the heck out of there. Also pretty sure she asked for the corporate number, which I gladly gave her along with my name and our restaurant number. Try explaining whatever the hell we did to her to corporate. The next customer that comes up to the window immediately goes, "Damn, that was messed up." Made the whole thing worth it.